Growing up in Pine Hollow was like being an outsider looking through a glass wall, separated from the warmth and laughter that bounced around my family's gatherings. Every time we convened for birthdays or holidays, the atmosphere was thick with shared memories and inside jokes that slipped right past me. I stood in the background, my heart heavy with the feeling that I was merely a spectator in a world where everyone else had a role, and I was merely an option on the menu, rarely chosen. My mother, with her radiant smile and infectious laughter, always had a little bit extra saved for my cousin. "Look at how well they did in school, isn't that marvelous?" she would exclaim, often dismissing my own struggles as if they were inconsequential bubbles in a vast ocean of family pride. While my cousin's life unfolded like a beautifully scripted play, mine felt more like an errant page from an unfinished manuscript, unread and misunderstood. On that crisp autumn afternoon, the air was filled with the smell of burning leaves and the melancholy sound of a distant lawn mower. I had been sifting through some of my grandfather's old boxes, a chore that my mother had put off for far too long. As I rummaged through dusty trinkets that belonged to a man I barely knew, I stumbled upon an old, weather-beaten envelope tucked behind a stack of musty books. Curiosity piqued, I retrieved it, the fragile paper crackling softly in my fingers. "What is this?" I whispered to myself, examining it under the dim light of the dusty attic window. As I opened the envelope, a single sheet of paper tumbled out, meticulously typed and slightly yellowed with age. It was my grandfather's will. While I had anticipated business quirks and trivial family heirlooms, I had not prepared for the gut-wrenching reality that unfolded as I read. My cousin's name appeared prominently, surrounded by impressive figures and declarations, a stunning sum of $500,000 specifically left for them. My mouth went dry and suddenly the words blurred, swimming in a haze of disbelief and indignation. I desperately skimmed through the document, hoping this was some sort of mistake. Surely he must have recognized my existence in a meaningful way. There, in stark contrast, my name was barely more than an afterthought, a mere line at the bottom, devoid of any monetary support or recognition that could even begin to match what had been generously bestowed upon my cousin. Slumping against the attic's wooden beam, I could feel a well of tears brimming in my eyes, a painful cocktail of betrayal, resentment, and humiliation brewing inside me. "This can't be right," I murmured, my voice trembling with raw emotion. "He always liked you more, didn't he?" I grimaced at the thought, knowing deep down that the seeds of jealousy had been planted long ago, but now they had bloomed into a garden of resentment I could hardly stomach. I pictured my cousin's dazzling smile as they flaunted their new luxury car on social media, a sleek red sports coupe that glimmered under sunlight like a precious jewel. "Can you believe it? Just look at this beauty," they would caption on their posts, soaking in the adoration from family and friends, while I scrapped together little victories like finding a job that barely paid the rent. The clicks, likes, and comments filled my cousin's posts like confetti, and with each notification ping, my heart thudded painfully in my chest. I felt invisible, a ghost haunting my own family gatherings as I listened to the echoes of laughter that seemed to reverberate only for them. "What's wrong, Autumn?" my mother had asked during one of those gatherings, her brow furrowing with concern as I quietly sipped my drink, pretending to be absorbed in conversation. "You seem a little distant." But I couldn't tell her the truth. I couldn't reveal that my soul felt trampled under the weight of neglect, overshadowed by someone whom everyone adored unconditionally. "Oh, I'm fine," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. "Just tired," I added, swallowing the bitterness that threatened to escape. But the truth was I was far from fine. Each day I felt myself unravel, the tapestry of my self-worth picking at its seams as I watched my cousins soar effortlessly through life, their path seemingly built from golden bricks. Why wasn't I enough? I often wondered, the question gnawing at my thoughts like a relentless predator. I would observe my mother's doting gaze on my cousin, the way she would shower them with attention and gifts. Birthdays were particularly painful, each one a reminder of just how overshadowed I felt. The happy squeals of my cousin tearing open gifts, while I received a simple card and a half-hearted happy birthday from my mother, who was probably still lost in thoughts of my cousin's recent achievements. One evening I decided to confront her, my heart pounding in my chest as I nervously paced the tiled floor. "Mom," I began, my voice trembling slightly, "can we talk about us?" She looked up from her phone, the blue light reflecting in her eyes, dulling the sparkle of excitement that usually danced within them. "Of course, sweetheart, what is it?" she said, confusion flitting across her features. I could feel the weight of my words pressing down on me like a heavy backpack filled with stones, and I steeled myself for an uphill battle. "You see how much time and energy you put into my cousin," I blurted out. "I barely get any attention anymore. I mean, it feels like I'm just here." The bitter taste of unspoken pain coated my tongue. "Can't you see how hard I try?" My voice broke, desperation clawing its way to the surface. She sighed, a mix of shock and sympathy. "I am proud of them. They have so much potential and I want them to succeed. But that doesn't mean I love you any less, Autumn. You are my daughter and you always will be." I could see her sincerity, but a part of me wrestled with the urge to scoff. "Love isn't just words, Mom," I said quietly, feeling small and vulnerable. "It's about actions too." The ensuing silence enveloped us thick as fog, and we found ourselves stuck in an impasse that felt insurmountable. As she searched for an appropriate response, I could sense the gulf between us widening. It was an invisible chasm filled with doubts and fistfuls of bitterness that I struggled to bridge. Days passed, each one blending into the next like an unshakable rhythm, the ache of my cousin's constant victories somehow growing stronger. I began to see their every smug post, each carefully curated image that captured what felt like a mocking display of their joy. They wore fashion labels that draped them like royalty, and their social media glorified their luxuries, seemingly aimed at reminding me of my own inadequacies. A luxury vacation to a tropical paradise appeared on my screen, shimmering waters just a tap away, lined with friends who raved about ecstatic moments shared together, while I was tucked away in my one-bedroom apartment, the walls closing in with every razor-sharp pang of envy that coursed through me. After I found the will, the once faint whisper of jealousy transformed into a deafening roar. "You don't deserve this," I murmured to myself, staring into a mirror, my face squashed with anguish. I rubbed my eyes, but the reality remained etched in my mind like graffiti on a wall, my cousin basking in a spotlight that I could not step into. I need to do something, I thought. The sentiment ignited something dark and intangible, a foreboding sensation that my heart echoed like a drum. A plan began to form, fueled by passion and heartbreak, the amalgamation of my silent suffering and their loud triumphs. The lover of stories within me began to weave a narrative that had been longing for resolution. "If they think they can just push me aside, they will see," I muttered defiantly. The envy that twisted my insides began to harden into an insidious motivation for revenge, a sharp weapon of my own design. In Pine Hollow, the lines of the past and present blurred, making room for darkness in a story that had been overshadowed for too long. My fingers stung with the anticipation of crafting a past wrong into a future right. It was sadder than I wanted to admit, but I felt alive in this whirlwind. Mrs. Wilson's old garden shed and all the tools it held seemed to beckon me as I stood at a precipice, a dark place where revenge could flourish, a path toward reclamation and power. "They'll regret how they've treated me," I whispered fiercely, determination igniting a fire, illuminating my soul in a way I hadn't felt before, the kind of fire that would stop at nothing. And so began the unraveling of familial bonds, masked behind a facade of love and promises, my place no longer confined to the shadows. No, I was ready to burst into the light, shimmering and demanding. My story was just beginning. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I wanted to say crashing down on me like a storm cloud ready to burst. I never liked confrontations, but with my heart pounding in my chest, I knew this was necessary. The cramped kitchen, filled with the scent of yesterday's spaghetti and the lingering aroma of brewed coffee, felt like a pressure cooker with no escape. My mother was at the worn wooden table, her eyes fixed on me with that familiar mixture of annoyance and indifference. I could see the faint crinkles on her forehead, a sign that she was barely holding onto her patience. "Mom," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the swirling emotions inside. "We need to talk." She looked up, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup as if the ceramic held all the answers to my heartache. I watched her, waiting for her to say something, anything that might show she understood just how much her actions had hurt me. But all I received was a raised eyebrow and a slight tilt of her head, encouraging me to continue. "I've been feeling really hurt by the way you treat me compared to my cousin. It's like I've become invisible in this family." The words spilled from my lips, each one heavy with the agony of being overlooked. The silence that followed felt like eternity. Her expression hardened, and instead of the empathy I desperately sought, I was met with skepticism. "Oh, come on, Autumn." She waved her hand dismissively as though my feelings were nothing more than dust on the table. "You are being overly dramatic. You should really be happy for your cousin. Everyone has their path and maybe yours is just different. Different how?" I felt the heat rising in my cheeks, shame battling with anger. It was as if she was saying my feelings of neglect and anguish were nothing more than a bump in the road, something inconsequential compared to the smooth sailing my cousin enjoyed. "But Mom," I tried again, clutching the edge of the table, terrified that if I didn't ground myself, I would float right out of that kitchen in frustration. "You have treated me like I am second best my entire life. Every time you praise them, it feels like a knife to my heart." Her eyes flashed with irritation and she sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Here we go again. I'm tired of having this conversation, Autumn. I just don't see why you cannot appreciate what you have." I could see her searching for something in me, perhaps a willingness to accept her words as wisdom, but all I felt was an overwhelming sense of injustice. I opened my mouth to respond, but I could only manage a shaky breath. "I do appreciate what I have, but it's hard when I am constantly reminded that I do not measure up." I pressed on, urgency fueling my voice. "Every family gathering turns into a display of everything I am not, and you're okay with that. You just watch. Listen, I don't control what others do," she snapped, her voice sharper than I had expected. "I cannot help how your cousin's family chooses to raise them or what they have been given. You need to focus on your own life. Make something of yourself." That was it. Those words ignited something deep inside of me. I felt angry, betrayed, and above all, profoundly sad. Her lack of understanding and refusal to acknowledge my pain felt like a door slamming shut in my face. It wasn't simply a rejection of my feelings, it was an acceptance of my cousin's successes as valid while mine were diminished to nothingness. "Do you not understand how this feels? I am proud of my accomplishments, but they seem so insignificant next to all the extravagant things they're given," I said, desperation seeping into my tone. I don't want to be pitied, but I do want to be seen. Is that too much to ask? My mother shook her head, her disappointment evident. You are acting like a child, Autumn. You need to grow up and accept that life is not fair. You should be happy for your cousin and not wallow in self-pity. Her words stung, each one hitting me like sharp icicles. The laughter of my cousin echoed in my mind, the joy radiating from their very being, while I felt like a shadow slipping further into the darkness. I stared at my mother, feeling as if I were trying to reach through an unbreakable barrier. Wallowing, this isn't pity, Mom, this is hurt, this is loneliness. The walls around us trembled with unspoken words, echoes of years of being cast aside. Nothing I said seemed to penetrate her resolute indifference, and it stung worse than I could express. I could feel the tears prickling behind my eyes as I wrestled with the clarity of rejection. I stood abruptly from the table, the chair scraping against the floor like nails on a chalkboard. The room felt suffocating, the walls closing in on me. You will never understand, will you? I snapped, turning my back to her. The anger built in my chest, hot and raging, finding strength in my fear. All those years and you still can't see who I am. I stepped out into the small living area, a desperate attempt to escape the air thick with unresolved feelings. My heart raced, pounding a chaotic rhythm against my ribcage. The walls felt like they were closing in, trapping me in a lifetime of disappointments. And the thought of the family gathering looming just around the corner filled me with dread, as if someone had filled my stomach with lead. Later, the gathering felt like a storm I was wholly unprepared for. The chatter of 100 different voices assaulted my ears, mingling with the mouth-watering scent of barbecue and baked goods. I tried to keep a brave face, but I could feel the familiar weight of my expectations pulling me down. My cousin was there, surrounded by swarms of family members eager to hear about their latest shopping sprees and lavish adventures. I could not help but be drawn to the spotlight they took up, the way they captivated everyone with tales of expensive vacations and extravagant gifts. Did you see the brand new car they bought? A relative exclaimed, laughter bubbling in their voice, and my heart sank deep into my stomach. In contrast, I could barely afford my existing car, which coughed and sputtered every time I turned the key. I felt the strangle of envy wrapping around my throat, tighter with each passing moment. Why don't you come join us, Autumn? You'll love this new place we found, it is so nice. My cousin called out to me, oblivious to the tension in my heart. Their laughter echoed like bells, filling the air, and it pushed my anger to the surface. I could feel it boiling like a cauldron ready to overflow. Yeah, Autumn, come on, we want to hear about your plans for life. Another family member chimed in, their voice loud and cheerful, cutting through my tightening chest. My pulse quickened, and a mixture of embarrassment and frustration surged through me. I felt utterly powerless and alone, surrounded by family yet feeling as if they inhabited another planet. I don't have any plans, okay? I shouted, unable to hold back any longer. The laughter faded slightly, small gasps replaced the joy, and I could see several heads turn in my direction. My cheeks tinged with mortification, but the storm inside me was unstoppable. I am sick of hearing about your money and your trips. I want to talk about something real. Autumn, calm down. My mother's voice came through the crowd, a strained plea. But I could not calm down. I was done feeling like I was second best, done being the family punching bag. Her tone was just another reminder that I was alone, battling my own demons without support. Real, my cousin scoffed, crossing their arms in mock defense. This is what life is about. You should really just lighten up and enjoy. Their laughter was infectious among the crowd, mocking my despair. I could feel the strangled silence in the room. A heavy weight where once there was laughter, and I knew this was just the beginning of my reckoning. My desires for acknowledgement, validation, and even revenge flickered within me like a fire eager to blaze. How long would I let them laugh at my expense? The thought galvanized me, igniting a resolve deep within. But first, I needed to take action. I wouldn't allow myself to be the victim anymore. I would show them how real hurt can be. In that crowded room filled with laughter that felt like daggers, I began to plot my revenge, imagining the tables turning where the laughter would one day fall on them instead. I would make them see, I would no longer sit in the shadows silently. Nurturing that hope, a dark flame flickered inside me, ready to blaze a trail through this painful reality. The echoes of laughter and clinking glasses from the family gathering still reverberated in my mind, a haunting melody that twisted like a knife in my gut. I could almost feel the weight of those affectionless smiles pressing down on me, stifling my existence as I paced in my small apartment. The stark walls felt like they were closing in, every corner crammed with memories that I would rather forget. It was a prison of my own making, a place I once cherished now turned into a chamber of despair. How did it come to this? I whispered to myself, my voice trembling with the raw edge of emotion. Every step I took was a replay of the evening, the envious glances, the mocking laughter that rang out when I dared to voice my opinions, the dismissiveness that followed like a shadow. It is not personal, Autumn, it is just business, they would say, their words dripping like honey, masking the poison hidden beneath. I could still hear them casting aside my struggles, treating me like a ghost haunting the periphery of their glittering lives. The feeling of being robbed surged again, more potent than before. They took not just money but the affection and attention I craved, leaving me empty like an unfilled glass waiting for water that would never come. I stopped pacing, my breath hitching as anger coursed through me like a wildfire. I am not going to be the victim anymore, I declared, the words falling from my lips with a fierce determination. I stared at my laptop sitting in the corner, the flickering screen casting a pale glow in the dim light. I will use this, I will make them listen. My fingers tingled with excitement as I settled at the small desk tucked by the window. As I opened a new document, my heart raced in anticipation. This was not just a blog, this was my lifeline, my weapon. Where to begin? I thought, the cursor blinking at me mockingly as if urging me to unleash the tempest that swirled within. I took a deep breath, letting the anger fuel my words. The clatter of the keys filled the room as I began typing. My family is a tapestry woven with the threads of wealth and favoritism. From the outside we look picture perfect, but beneath the surface lie the jagged edges of inequality. I paused, envisioning the faces of my relatives reading these words, their expressions morphing from casual dismissal to outrage. Let them see the truth, I thought, my resolve strengthening. Let them understand the depth of my struggle. I dug deep into memories of growing up, recalling how my parents would praise my siblings while I stood in the background, invisible. Remember the time at the family reunion? I started typing, images flooding my mind. While everyone gathered around to celebrate my brother's new promotion, I was relegated to the kitchen, pouring drinks and pretending not to care. Each word felt like a scalpel inflicting righteous wounds laid bare for the world to see. What did it feel like, Autumn, standing there all alone? I caught muttering to myself, feeling the tears build up just behind my eyes. It felt like drowning every single moment. I felt invigorated, unearthing the stories my family wanted to keep in the dark. I poured my memories into the blog, detailing every time my family chose money over love and unity over empathy. Here you can read about the summer vacations where only the golden children received lavish gifts, I typed bitterly, the memories flooding back to sting like fresh wounds. I was always the one left behind, spending long weekends with friends because my parents decided I was not worth the investment. It felt liberating to share these truths, crafting narratives that laid bare the unkept vows of familial devotion cloaked in financial love. Days turned into nights as I sat at my desk, pouring my heart into each post. The soft hum of my laptop became the background music of my revenge, drowning out the whispers of self-doubt that threatened to distract me. The sunlight streaming through the window was no longer a reminder of bright family gatherings, but a spotlight illuminating my truth, urging me forward. Let them read, let them question everything, I thought, feeling a sense of empowerment swell within me. When I clicked publish for the first time, anxiety coursed through me. My heart raced as I took a step back, staring at the screen. Will they really read this? I wondered, gnawing my lip. Immediately, it felt like the calm before the storm, the silence before the chaos of family discourse. I poured myself a glass of water, jittery and restless as I hit refresh, watching the tiny number of views rise steadily. Over the following weeks, my blog gained traction and the palpable tension I had been hoping for brewed within the walls of my family. The notifications were relentless, the comments, the likes, the shares, all spilling over like a boiling pot. Friends from the community reached out, sympathizing with my plight, voicing their thoughts on family dynamics and favoritism that mirrored my own. You are so brave for opening up about this, one reader wrote. Thank you for putting words to what I have felt for so long. Every new comment felt like a slight stitch in my tattered sense of self, pulling me together. I am not alone, I whispered, hope blooming in the cracks of my broken heart. Yet with every hint of validation came the lurking shadow of my family's impending backlash. This is only the beginning. Then one chilly evening, as I was cozied up in my blanket with my laptop perched on my lap, a message popped up from my cousin. Autumn, we need to talk, it read, tapping into the frayed nerves of my resolve. You are creating waves that are rattling family ties. This issue should stay within the family. Anxiety crept in, but alongside it was exhilaration. My words had sparked outrage enough to warrant a personal message. I could envision the conversations around the dinner table, faces flushed with anger, brows furrowed. How dare she? I could hear their thoughts racing. My phone buzzed again. You will regret this, another family member warned. A wave of satisfaction washed over me, but it was quickly followed by annoying fear. Did I bite off more than I could chew? I placed my hands over my cheeks, warming the cool flush that crept in. With every new warning, my heart raced. My chest tightened as they threatened me with ostracism, with pulling away their affection. All I did was speak my truth, I argued silently, a primal need to defend myself rising like bile in my throat. But deep down, their harsh words soothed a part of me that had long simmered beneath the surface. You think you can silence me? You have underestimated my resilience, I thought defiantly. Just then there was a knock on my apartment door. My heart soared. I never expected company. Maybe they've come to apologize, I mused foolishly, but doubt quickly banished any optimism. I opened the door and the sharp bite of cold air rushed in. Standing in the frame was a figure I knew too well, their expression a mixture of anger and pity. We need to talk, they said, their tone steely, cutting through the lingering warmth of my hope. What is there to talk about? I shot back, surprised at the strength in my voice. You all made your decisions, chose your favorites long ago. Why come here now? Because you're tearing the family apart with your blog, they countered bitterly. This isn't how we handle things. But it is how I'm handling things, I replied firmly, not willing to budge. You can ignore the truth, but I won't. It is about time someone held the family accountable for their actions. The silence that followed felt like an eternity, thick with unspoken sentiments, resentment, and perhaps fear. You don't know what you're doing, they warned, stepping closer, eyes narrowing. "This is dangerous. Dangerous," I repeated incredulously, a bitter chuckle escaping my lips. What is more dangerous, a hidden truth or the facade we've all upheld for so long? I held my ground, my heart pounding with both fear and anticipation. This confrontation, this moment, was the culmination of all my pain, all my defiance. "And what do you think will happen?" they asked, eyebrows raised, a hint of doubt flickering across their face. "Do you honestly believe exposing the family will make you feel better?" "It will only drive us further apart." I shrugged, feeling my inner voice growing more resolute. Family is supposed to lift each other up, not push one another down for the sake of wealth and status. This is about exposing hypocrisy, not tearing each other down. Another silence enveloped us, thick as smoke. "I admire your courage, but sometimes the truth can fracture more. Autumn. You need to consider the consequences," they replied, their tone softening slightly. "The consequences are already here," I countered, feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins. I refused to be invisible anymore. As the words hung in the air, I could see them wavering. My heart swelled with hope. Perhaps they were beginning to understand. Perhaps my message was breaking through their defenses. "I don't need you to agree with me," I added, my voice steady. "I just need you to see, truth matters more than keeping up appearances." With that, the look in their eyes shifted. They hesitated, and for one brief moment I saw a flicker of something, recognition or regret perhaps. "You're stronger than I thought," they whispered, almost reluctantly. Finally, as they turned to leave, I called out, "Wait." They paused, glancing back at me, the door still ajar. "You can be part of this change or watch from the sidelines. The choice is yours." And just like that, in the echoing silence that followed, I felt a tremor of satisfaction thrill through me. I had stood my ground. I refused to recede back into the shadows, even in the face of family loyalty. The blog, the words, my truth was just the beginning. I was ready to unleash the storm I had ignited. And in a world where I had always been the sidelined relative, I was finally taking my place in the light. "I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill that request." In the aftermath of my venture into the spotlight, I stepped outside into the crisp air of a Pine Hollow morning, a soft breeze kissing my cheeks, bringing with it the scent of fresh pine and damp earth. It felt as though the world had shifted overnight. Everything seemed brighter, sharper. I inhaled deeply, savoring this new sense of liberation. Behind me, the modest family home stood unchanged, yet it felt as though I was looking at it through a different lens. Memories of family gatherings, laughter, and the all-too-familiar feeling of being overlooked now clashed sharply with the excitement of recent events, as if a curtain had been drawn back, revealing harsh truths within the fabric of family loyalty. My cousin, who always wore their confidence like a badge of honor, had forgot how quickly pride can sour. The news had been explosive, and I had become an unexpected force. Watching as they grappled with the fallout was both satisfying and surreal. Their once enviable life, which I had envied for years, was now a tattered portrait hanging in disarray. And I was the artist who had struck it down, brush in hand, breaking free from their shadow. I had received an outpouring of support since everything came to light. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from family members I had hardly known were paying attention. "I always believed in you," one wrote. "You deserve this." Those words warmed me, wrapping around my heart like a cozy blanket on a chilly day. I had expected hostility, resentment, but instead found kindred spirits, allies who had also been pushed into corners. "Autumn, can you believe it?" came a voice from behind me. I turned and found my mother standing at the doorframe, her expression a mix of relief and worry. The family dynamic had changed, the pressure of my revelations seeming to lift some burdens, but it was evident that my actions were unsettling for her. "Your aunt called and she was surprised, to say the least. I think she feels guilty." I shrugged, feeling a sense of empowerment as I stood my ground. She should feel guilty, and so should the rest of them. I was tired of being treated like a ghost in my own family, invisible and unheard. I know," my mother said, stepping outside. The sun glinted off the rim of her glasses, reflecting a woman in the midst of transformation. "But Autumn, there is a way to do this without burning bridges." I couldn't help but notice how her voice trembled slightly, as if she was wrestling with her own change of heart. "I mean, family is family. At some point you have to reconcile. Reconcile." I laughed, the sound echoing louder than I intended in the stillness of the morning, the kind of laugh that comes from a deep place of defiance. Reconcile with people who never saw me as worthy? I poured my heart into this family, always supporting everyone else while I stood in the shadows. It is time for that to change. A thoughtful silence hung in the air between us. I could see her wrestling with the truth of my words. "I am trying to understand," she said quietly. "It must have been so hard for you to stay silent for so long." I nodded, the mix of emotions swirling within me. "It was, Mom, but what's harder is seeing you all pretend like it is okay to ignore the reality of how I have been treated. Today's my time to step into the light, to take back what was always mine." Her face softened, and I could see the understanding slowly creeping in. "I guess I never truly realized the pressure you were under. I thought you just accepted things as they were." "Maybe I did for a while, but I am done being complacent. I have power now, and I intend to use it to reshape my path, something that was always denied me." And then something shifted. My mother, the woman who had shaped so much of my world, leaned closer. "I admire your bravery, Autumn. It takes courage to stand up for yourself." At that moment, I felt a release of tension within me, like shackles breaking away. The familial bond I craved was still there but adjusted now, shape-shifting from what once felt exclusive and stifling to something more open, allowing light to filter through the cracks. And I want you to understand, I added, that I do not hold any resentment. I merely want the respect that I deserve. Yes, she murmured, as if speaking to herself. Maybe I should have believed in you sooner. The air between us felt charged with a new understanding. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone lit up with a flood of notifications. Your bravery is inspiring, people wrote. I always wanted to say something but never had the courage. Each message felt like a warm hug. They fueled my resolve even more. I could hear the whispers of my relatives, a chorus echoing loudly in my mind. The next family gathering would be crucial. I envisioned every moment. I could imagine walking into the living room, every eye on me. The tension would be palpable. My cousin might glare, my aunt might look away, but I would stand tall. I would speak my truth like a shield, ready to deflect any negativity with the unwavering force of my newfound strength. I grinned in the dim light, imagining their faces as I recounted everything that happened with clarity and conviction. The day of the gathering arrived, and I decided to wear something that made me feel powerful, a deep blue dress that flowed elegantly, its color reminding me of the sky before dusk. The silence that enveloped my arrival was intense, a collective breath held in suspension, my heart racing as their eyes fell upon me. Autumn, my aunt said slowly, her voice dripping with condescension. You've made quite the scene lately. I could see the nervousness hidden beneath her cool facade, the harsh line of her lips betraying her attempts to remain in control. Scene? I asked, tilting my head, my voice steady and calm, masking the undercurrent of adrenaline. You mean the truth? It's enlightening, isn't it? I let that sink in, relishing the shocked expressions of my relatives. The initial hostility was palpable but soon shifted to intrigue as I began to recount my journey. I was finally able to find my voice amidst your shadows. I spent so long feeling like I didn't belong, but the reality is I deserved better all along. The murmurs buzzed like static in the air, vibrating around us. I could see some heads nodding, others shaking in disbelief. I was speaking for everyone who had felt similarly smothered by favoritism in their own way, and for each hesitant agreement my courage blossomed further. I cannot change the past, but I am no longer willing to be the overlooked girl in this family. There is a cost to every action we take, and ignoring my worth was a hefty one. I pressed on, my voice growing warmer, more passionate. I love each of you deeply, but this love must be built on honesty and respect. As I continued, I could feel the tension begin to dissolve. I scanned the faces before me, realizing some were not as opposed to my words as I had imagined. They were listening, absorbing every word. My cousins shifted uncomfortably, diverting their gaze to their lap, their previously mighty facade visibly cracking. The power within me surged like a tidal wave. I was reclaiming my place at the family table. My mother's gaze met mine from across the room, her expression proud and encouraging. It was in that moment that I saw the shift within her too. Rebuilding was possible, and I was not generating discord but rather fostering healthy dialogue. Each voice that had been silent before now had a chance to speak. As the gathering came to a close, my cousin approached. Though they were still hesitant, there was a humbleness to them now, a realization in their eyes. I didn't realize how much you were hurting. I'm sorry, Autumn, they said, their voice barely a whisper. It was the first genuine acknowledgement I had witnessed. I appreciate that, I replied, feeling a wave of something unfamiliar wash over me, a spark of empathy. I hope we can all turn this into a chance to better our relationships. And just like that, what felt like immutable barriers began to erode. With newfound connections forming, I found solace in this understanding. I had not only reclaimed my power, but I had also sparked a revival. I would carve a future that fostered respect and recognition, a future where I was no longer overlooked. I was ready for my new chapter, proud of who I had become and prepared to stand tall amidst the family that had once cast me into the shadows.